Boom. Boom. Just like that, we are live. Welcome, everybody. We are live. Welcome to Red TV in Conversation. I am Peter Clark, and I want to welcome you specifically. If you're watching for the first time, thank you so much. If you're returning, thank you even more. Thank you more. Appreciate that. Appreciate it. Means you know what's coming. Pretty pumped today. Hey, I start every show almost like that, but some days are more exciting than others. This one's pretty exciting. We had this guy on before. I'm telling you right now, he's pretty shy. I'm going to try to pull him out of his shell today. He is very shy, as most Texans are, as you can imagine here. CEO and co-founder of Cult Collective, one of North America's premier marketing advisor groups. That's who they are. Now, I think he's calling himself a My Advisor Group. I'm going to ask him that in a second. CEO and co-founder of Cummuno, outsourcing solution provider designed specifically for marketing service providers. Boom, sounds like a commercial right there. Chief Content Officer and co-founder of The Gathering. We're going to talk about that. That's really why I wanted to bring this fine young gentleman back. The Gathering is a Forbes top-rated business summit masterclass for brands and business leaders. He's an amazing public speaker and the shyness of all good Texans. But we're going to try to pull him out of his shell today. Everyone, welcome, please. Chris Kneeland, how are you?
I'm excellent, Peter. It's great to be back, man.
Man, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for joining me. Listen, I know we're on a time schedule today. It's a hot, sunny day in Western Canada, and I'm keeping you behind, so I'm going to get you in and out really, really quick. Good to see you, as always. First and foremost question, always, you and your family, everyone good?
Everybody's well. Thank you for asking.
All right, my fine friend. Great to see you. Great to see you. Now, listen, you got so much going on here. Now, I mentioned Texas, so let's cut to the chase right now. Today is Memorial Day in the United States.
Sir.
So May 31st, 2021, we're referring to everybody. He's a proud Texan. So what does Memorial Day mean to you? And how would you be recognizing it today if you're down in Texas?
You know, it's Memorial Day. It's not that different, I guess, in terms of May long weekend. In terms of the calendar, it's certainly the kickoff for summer, and there's a lot of barbecues and outdoor activities. I think America has a very interesting relationship with our military. You know, my dad fought in Vietnam, and when he came home, he was booed in the airport. Yeah. You know, the soldiers at that time, the culture didn't separate politics from those who fought. And I think we've done a much better job of late kind of recognizing those who serve, regardless of your thoughts on Afghanistan or Iraq or the war on terror, whatever. There's a new level of gratitude and respect for the soldiers. It also really hits home for me because I have an 18-year-old that is going to enlist in the military this fall, and so we're going to become a military family. And I was actually doing some homework for the Gathering, for the speech that I gave at the Gathering, and I was researching. I had identify like the oldest professions, and one of those professions was soldier, and even the term freelancer comes from professional soldiers. They're professional lancers that would sell themselves out to whoever the conquering king was. And I have a lot of respect for a soldier as a job, as a discipline, for somebody who's is there to defend or to guard or to fight and to kill. And it's kind of up there with doctors and clergy and politicians as one of the oldest and most noble professions. And so I hope to be even better at honoring those who have chosen that as a career, because it's very noble.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I talked to a few people in the United States today, and bottom line, for me personally, I always say this to anyone from America. You're originally from America as well, an American, and America's like an idea. It's like an ideal, and I think today is just an example of it. Even though it's recognizing maybe their particular sacrifices and so on. I mean, they've been also pretty much policing the world, and in some cases, you know, and fighting next to Canadians and Europeans and all kinds of different things. So it's really a recognition of just the fact that you and I can do this. and
yeah, absolutely.
And have those freedoms. So I appreciate you saying that. Now, speaking of the United States of America, you are a proud Texan. You are right now currently in Calgary, Alberta, as we speak, but you're taking your passport and citizenship elsewhere, as I understand. You're going south of the border here to Utah, somewhere near Sundance, everybody, just so you know, if you want to track them down. And I quote you now, better summers, easier winters, lower cost of living, and extended and closer to the extended family. So does that sound about right?
That's, you know, I think like many people, COVID's caused us to reprioritize and reevaluate, and I've just absolutely loved everything about our stay here in Canada, but it was never permanent. We've always known it was going to be temporary, and it was just a question of when. And I think that it probably accelerated our departure by 2 to 3 years. My grade 11 son is not excited about this acceleration. That's a tough time to move a kid. Sure. I bribed him with a Ford Mustang. So the one thing that overcomes, you know, parental guilt is bribery, and so that took some of the sting out of it for him. But yeah, we're actually really, and it's imminent. We're really excited. We're moving on the 25th of July, and so my company will stay here, and I'll be back quite often. But we're gonna, I think these closed borders and some of the things the Canadian government has done has really hampered business. And so we have to mitigate that risk and have boots on the ground down there.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. I just explained, and by the way, a couple things. First of all, better summers, easier winters. You had me right there. And just so you know, I'd move to Utah as well for a Mustang, just so you know. But now that we know why you're going, why now? You know, why now? Because it's been a really challenging 12 to 15 months, and we're still in the middle of kind of this, you know, digging out of this, whatever we want to call this. Why now? And I know you just said, well, maybe it accelerated things, but maybe a year from now? Like why this summer right now?
Well, having a kid in grade 11 kind of means you have to move in you got to pick a summer because you don't want to displace him in the middle of a school year. As the U.S. has opened up faster than Canada has, most of our businesses south of the border and clients start to expect you to show up and do your business development pursuits. And you know, I actually did just come back from the States, and you know, I took 5 COVID tests in a 72-hour period. Actually, that's not true. 4 in a 72-hour period, and then 1 8 days later. Still had to be quarantined for 14 days. Came from countries that had less infection rates than Canada. I'm absolutely completely befuddled and upset with the way that Canada has treated some of these mitigation tactics. And so just as a good practice, I think we just need to, if our business is in other countries, I think we need to have representation in those countries so that I don't think this is going to be the last time that we're going to be dealing with some sort of catastrophic event. And I think Canada's sort of showed their hand on how they're going to respond. And so therefore, if that's going to be the approach, then I got to make sure our business isn't going to be vulnerable as a result of it. Okay,
well, from a CEO and a founder, co-founder right there, everybody. So that's why I wanted to know right now, because I think it's you know, first of all, I'm excited for you because I mean, anytime you move, it is exciting. And I read a couple of things that you've talked about that, where you can find your happiness and all that kind of stuff. But it's really about just being somewhere where you really love to be, and obviously you want to be down for business.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, the why now part is, I think, is COVID. But you know, I posted on social a couple weeks ago some research. I think it's called 𝘂𝗶𝘁𝗵 I forget there's a clinical term for living in the place where your heart yearns to be. Yes. Yes. And sometimes that's something nostalgic or familiar. Sometimes that's just, I'm a beach person, or I'm a mountain person, or I'm a city dweller. And, you know, I lived in Utah for a short period of time when I was going to school, post-secondary. I met my wife there, who had grown up there, and we have certainly visited, but you know, I've lived in 9 states and 2 countries now, and that's just a place that felt very comfortable, very familiar. We love the seasons, we love the Rocky Mountains, we love the weather, and so yeah, I think it's COVID also kind of, you know, causes you to prioritize. It's just, you know, life is short, and spend the time with people that you love and the places that you love. And so while we've absolutely been thrilled with our Canadian experience, my heart has pulled me back to that part of the country in the States. And so I'm hoping that that's our forever home, and that's kind of where we settle down till the end of our days.
All right, fantastic. Well, listen, I definitely want to just show you that there are just more than you and I here, just so you know. Massachusetts, Boston in the house right there. So there's your American friends right there showing up right there. Another person, Kenneth, I know you're in America somewhere, and I'm sorry for it. I can't remember the state at the very second right here. We have Ottawa in the house as well, right there. And James, I'm not sure. I can't remember James, but I've seen your name before, James. Anyway, tell us where you're zooming in from right now. We appreciate that. So, okay, we got the moving over. We're taking Cult down there, but Cult's staying here. So we'll get into that in a second. But let's go to the gathering. Let's talk about the gathering, just so that everybody knows. I mean, that is just one of these monster global world-class events that you created with your co-founder Ryan Gill, and anyway, it is fantastic, everybody. So look, I'm going to put it up along the bottom as I always do, so that you can do your own homework, everybody, to make sure that you can find it. There's some of the websites right there, and of course for Chris, make sure you connect with him on LinkedIn, especially all you new American friends, because there's your new neighbor right there, and he's able to be contacted there, and you'll find out a little bit more about Cult. Of course, you can go to Cult Collective on there, cultideas.com. Now, I just wanted to make sure I said that earlier. You said, I think we transitioned now to advisors. Are you guys, you call yourself advisors now? Is that? I
think so. Yeah. We're really trying to delineate the difference between what we do versus a traditional advertising agency versus a traditional business consultancy. And so we've kind of landed on this idea of a audience engagement firm that provides advisory services, because we do a bit more consultation than production or implementation work. I think it's fitting. It's a suit that we're trying on. It's fitting pretty good so far.
I love it. I think that's what it is. I think that's exactly what it is. If someone sits down with you, which I've had this privilege to do this once before like this, but I've met you before at the gathering and things like that. When people get a chance to sit with you, that's exactly what's happening there. It's a conversation. It's there's a lot of advice where you're measuring it up against. It's none of this kind of thing. So even though in how you express yourself, which we'll get to that, which is hey, shy Texan, right? Shy Texan as you are, not known to be outspoken at all. But it's more of an advisory thing. And I think that will separate from you. You guys are already different than everybody else anyway, from my opinion. But the advisory thing, I like it. So keep that jacket on for a little while. That's okay. That's going to be really super cool. Okay, let's go to the gathering. First time you did it virtually since its inception, which is unbelievable. Biggest brands in the world. You always bring together some of the greatest minds in branding and marketing and so on. I'm going to bring up the website. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the brands that you had the pleasure of amplifying this year and some of the keynote speakers and so on. Generally speaking, as I bring that up, what made it so? I know it was online, but was that so different for you? Did it feel so different, or were you able to kind of get in the jive of things when you were there?
As I've kind of pondered it after it was done, I mean, the reality of moving it to online wasn't the biggest challenge. It was the unknowing of, is it going to be live or online, or is it going to be half and half? It was literally up until February, we were still depending. I'll be sending a couple hundred people out to Banff to do it. So it was the dealing with the ambiguity that was, and I don't think many Calgarians were anticipating this third wave, because in the fall, we kind of thought we got the handle on this thing. And we moved it from February to April out of an abundance of caution at the time. Who would have known that come April, we would be, spiking and leading North American cities in terms of our, infection rates. And so that part, I'm just kind of glad it was over, because it was on again, off. You never cancel, but the format, we had to kind of prepare for all the contingencies of it. Once you kind of got into it, I feel like the content was as rich as it's ever been. The brand leaders were remarkable. There was a good and a bad. The good is like when I'm sitting in the auditorium, I'm just, kind of engrossed in the speech. This has a pretty vibrant chat feature going on that I found humorous, that I found engaging, that I found helpful. If the speaker referenced something, somebody else would go find the link or include a stat about it. And so it was a bit more like content in 3D, kind of like watching your podcast. I'm always so impressed with what you have going on. You have the audio and the visual and the text going across the bottom. So I think we kind of live in a stimulant-rich environment, and the gathering had more of that this year. I love the fact that all of that content's archived. We haven't always done that. So now I can, there's 4 pieces of content at any given hour. So you have the chance to go back and watch stuff that I missed. What I didn't like is that you have to be very disciplined, because when you commit to go to a conference and you pay $1,500 or whatever to get there, like, you're present and you shut off your phone and you have your out of office on. And even if you're in a session you don't love, you stick through it because it might be rude to walk out. And next thing you know, 10 minutes later, they actually turn it around and they're saying something that's knocking your socks off. Versus in this scenario, you can kind of channel surf. And if the person didn't grab your attention in the first 4 or 5 minutes, you switch over to the other one. But now you've kind of missed their intro. Maybe you take a phone call. Maybe your kids are driving you crazy. So I just don't think you had that immersive experience. And I kind of think of it like REM sleep. Like, you can't just jump to the most restorative deep sleep. You have to go through the stage 1 and stage 2 and stage 3. And I think business insights and epiphanies are the same way. And so if you just sort of dabbled in the gathering, I don't think you got as much from it. Then if you kind of locked yourself in your room and did turn off your email and just say, I'm going to be present for the next 2 or 3 days, or for this hour, like, I'm just going to spend every morning and watch one session for an hour and then do the next one and the next one. Because otherwise, I think it's just a little too easy for your ADHD to kick in, and you just start flying around the channels.
Big time. Well, I'm going to jump right to class of 2021. Let's have a look at some of the honorees here. I'm on the website, everybody. You can always check this out. It's called cultgathering.com, cultgathering.com. So there's the honorees and the brands that, again, everybody, every year is different. They bring together some of the, again, these, look at the brands right there. Netflix, the 76ers from the NBA, Shopify, right away, 3 that people would recognize instantly. Let's just go down real quick through it. Netflix, Shopify, Land Rover is there. Heard a couple things about that. That was interesting. Kawasaki is there. Herschel as well. Let's see. Yeah, right. Sorry. Amazon Barbie, which I thought was fantastically interesting, because I know that, of course, they're doing some really fascinating things and so on. Kijiji and more. So, and Budweiser. Again, there's so many there. And I put you on the spot. I told him I never tell people what I'm going to talk about on the show, just so everyone knows. I never give questions in advance, all that stuff. But I did send an email about an hour or 2 before, just so that he had some time. So Chris had some time to reflect, because there's so many amazing people at these events. There's so many great speakers and like you said, engagements and so on. And there's no one brand better than the other in the sense of. So I didn't want you to pick favorites, but with that, all that being said, pick out a couple here for me and walk me through maybe some of the things that really stood out for you of a couple of these, for anyone who is not familiar with exactly what they were expressing during this event.
Yeah, and I think one of my challenges is, I do these evaluations and get to know these brands, 6 to 7 months in advance of them coming to the stage. And so there's some things that I'll see about a brand or learn about a brand that will endear them to me. And then maybe the presentation is different. Like Netflix comes to mind. I think it's hard pressed to find a better brand, certainly through the pandemic. Netflix kind of kept us sane for the past 15 months in terms of their proliferation of content. And the Queen's Gambit, I think, was and Tiger King and all these types of things kind of were big parts of my personal pandemic story. But then when 𝘂𝗶𝘁𝗵 came, and she was probably the most intriguing CMO in terms of the press or industry insiders, like, wow, you got 𝘂𝗶𝘁𝗵 to come and speak. She's kind of a who's who in marketing right now. And Netflix was lucky enough to grab her. She has a really impressive background, like at Uber, and I think she was at Microsoft or Google. Like, she's just kind of been in that hot space for a while.
Yeah.
But like, her speech kind of blew me away because it had nothing to do with Netflix. And it was this kind of wonderful blend of female empowerment and diversity and inclusion and being your best self. And it was much more like a motivational talk to being a good human and being a good leader. And it had nothing to do with, how are they growing their subscribers or how are they making their choices on content. And so I was kind of left torn between like being so inspired by what she said, but then almost feeling like, but can you come back and tell the Netflix story too? Because Netflix is such a remarkable company. Sure. Right?
Oh, of course.
If you go back to the brand slide, I'll tell you, we had a first, which was 𝘂𝗶𝘁𝗵 𝘂𝗶𝘁𝗵, which is an emerging cult brand. Nobody has ever seen a presentation like this, guys. Did you see his, Peter?
I did not.
We've been doing this for 8 years. We've had over 500 pieces of content, and I can assure you there has never been a presentation like Ryan from 𝘂𝗶𝘁𝗵. I was getting texts like 5 minutes in saying, "What the hell is going on?" People were shutting it off. Other people was saying, "This guy is the biggest genius I've ever met in my entire life," which I love. I love the polarization of. I mean, it was a rock and roll concert. It was Randy Macho Man Savage incarnate. And this is an entrepreneur. He has a branding agency background. He was kind of worked for an agency and started his own fast food chain here. And really just on the strength of his persona is making this thing, a multi-million-dollar success story. And I was crying, laughing, not because he was necessarily hilarious, but because it was just so irreverent and irrational. And it was incredible. So if you did watch The Gathering, and you can still go back and it's all archived now. So you can still buy a ticket, so to speak, and watch it. But the brand that maybe I'll tell you about the most, because it was my favorite brand. When I finished evaluating this brand, I called the team together and said, I have a new man crush. And that's Traeger grills. And it's probably, listen, I'm not going to discount the Texan in me. I do love barbecue culture. I have an affinity for barbecue more than, say, Budweiser. But the turnaround story of how Traeger Grills was found, acquired by this outsider, how it nearly died and how he nearly died from cultural mutiny and him having to move the business from its humble roots in Oregon to he is actually ironically in Utah as well. And how he took it, I believe the numbers are a $25 million brand to a $300 million brand in less than 10 years by leaning into every aspect of a cult brand principle without him knowing about it. It wasn't like he read the book and said, okay, I'm going to use this as a playbook. He just thought to himself, and he's a Harvard graduate. He's a smart guy. He built the Skull Candy brand, which is a headphones brand, and sold it. And with that money, went and bought Traeger. But I just look at that as such a testament to these principles that we espouse at the Gathering, to say literally Traeger did. It's just a masterclass of how they transform their culture, their product, their community, their fans. And his speech, he's a very understated guy. I tend to be very loud and obnoxious. He's very meek and quiet. And I think sometimes people discount that as they don't understand the brilliance that's coming out of his mouth, because there's not a lot of inflection or a lot of hand gestures kind of a thing. But your audience would be well served to look into. And if you don't from the Gathering, there's a wonderful Harvard Business Review on Traeger's success story as well that's worth reading.
And there he is there, Jeremy. We're referring to Jeremy, right? Correct?
Yes.
I just want to make sure. Yeah, there we go. I just want to get the picture up while you were talking about the story there and so on. And what's amazing, again, and I'm saying this, and I want you to just comment on what I'm going to say here. I mean, this is truly like, again, this is a thing. It's a product. It's not a SaaS product. It's not Airbnb. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a physical thing. A product versus some of these other brands. Again, when you think about like a Netflix or a Shopify or someone very service oriented, things that you don't physically own. And I just think I think it's more difficult to actually make those a cult brand with things as opposed to a service. Tell me I'm right or wrong on that. What do you think?
I think you're wrong.
Thanks.
Well, I mean, so it's what's interesting is, so this was our 8th year. I actually just completed an assessment of all the honorees that we've had over the past 8 years. What would you guess, Peter, is the #1 category in terms of a genre of business? You could say automotive, hospitality, retail, medical. Like what genre do you think has the most cult brands according to our research?
Industry. We're talking industry wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to think media, and that's very general. I'm going to say media to the point of things that are sort of television or production value. So MMA, Netflix, these kinds. So I'm going to say media. Would that be close?
Well, we certainly have had ESPN.
Right.
We've had, you could take maybe take something like UFC, or you could even get into entertainment like Cirque du Soleil. But no, the #1 category was beverages. Patron tequila, Coca-Cola, Gatorade, Mountain Dew, Budweiser. It's actually, it's these high frequency, oftentimes premium categories. So apparel's big, consumer electronics like PlayStation or GoPro. So yeah, I mean, certainly services are nice because services can make you feel better, look better. But I think owning something that you interact with on a regular basis, whether it's your Levi's pants or your Converse shoes, is where people tend to have a higher affinity.
I think, you know what, the way you just described that, I completely agree with that. You're absolutely, because I always actually say that to people when we're talking about building a product or service. I always say, just generally, people want things. People like things, and you're right. They just love the tactile touching of something that they own. I know what you mean by that now that you say it that way. But beverages, absolutely, that is a painfully obvious one when you say it, because you're absolutely right. Once you're a fan of, if you mentioned Budweiser as an example, or Coke or a Pepsi or something like that. If you're a Pepsi person, you're certainly not a Coke person. I mean, you're very, very loyal to the brand. And once you build that, people don't really sway too far from it. You have to come up with some crazy stuff before they do that. I guess kind of like what Coke did recently. Saw you post something about Coke. What was their product line that they had?
They got into the energy drink category.
Right.
And what made no sense to me is they actually bought into Monster, which is an aspiring cult brand. And then they also launched a competitor to that called Coca-Cola Energy. And I think it was a dismal failure. And it was just a nice reminder that nobody's too big or too perfect to not, make a mistake.
There you go. Very well said. Absolutely. Very well said. Yeah. So let me just throw it here. Seattle. Look, boom. Seattle in the house. There you go, Chris. Here we go. 𝘂𝗶𝘁𝗵, he's over in Ottawa. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Oh, he knows about the Oat Smokes. Great brand, outrageous food. There you go.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, sounds really, really good. So, and I don't know that product, so I got to figure out where is that product here in.
Well, I know they're really big in out east, and I know that like a lot of people, when they were going, was like, it's evidently ritualistic that on a Friday or Saturday night, maybe after you had a bit to drink or you've been clubbing, you go into Smokes, and it's like the party continues at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. to get some good poutine and enjoy some rock and roll.
Got it. Okay, sounds good. So, well, it sounds like they need something like this out here during Stampede.
For sure.
That sounds what you just described right there. I'm going to take you down another. We're going to go all over the place today, everybody, because this gentleman's moving. So I'm not going to get a chance. Well, we could do this once you get settled down. That would be cool. But while I still have you in Calgary, I'm going to bounce you around a little bit. I do ask everyone to go back if you want to see our first interview. It's back at the beginning of this year as well. I think it was in January sometime of 2021, which was a lot of fun. So I appreciate your time then. Let's jump around a little tiny bit. Let me throw something up. I saw you you, and it's always fun to see what you post. I follow what you post, I follow what you say. And so you mentioned something, and I went out and dug up some research, and I want to show you something because I know that this is something that's close to your heart here. When you see this graphic, so I'm going to try to bring up the graphic. Let me just make some room here for you. So basically, I went out to PwC, Global Entertainment Media Outlook. This is their global entertainment media outlook for 2020 to 2024. Okay, so this is the data that's talking about basically your compounded annual growth over the next 4 to 5 years here. Okay, and here's what they've listed here: virtual reality, OTT video. So I'm assuming they mean OTT in the sense of video on demand, and Netflix and Amazon Prime, things like that. Video games and esports, and then right down there, number 4, internet advertising will have compounded growth. I'm wondering if you're surprised. And just below that, internet access, and then outdoor advertising, OOH, outdoor advertising, and so on, out of house. Are you surprised by some of that?
No, I mean, I'm not surprised at all. I make a living bemoaning this reality, and I don't know if my guess is this is growth in dollars. If you see charts that compare this to growth of eyeballs and engagement, it's even worse because you're paying more and more for a medium that's delivering less and less. It made sense when 40 million people tuned in to watch Friends that you might buy a TV commercial, but now have to pay more for that same commercial that's getting 8 million viewers, I think is asinine. I don't know how people justify that, but no, I mean, the internet digital advertising space is bamboozled most brands because what they lack in effectiveness, they more than compensate for in efficiency. And there's just so many businesses that are sort of like, I need to spend this money as if that's the job description. But it's like, I got this budget and I need to find a way to get the most eyeballs for the least amount of effort, so to speak. And so programmatic and media buying in particular, I'm less fussed about things like Google keywords. I think that's less offensive than all of the display ads that are being percolated on largely Facebook and Google properties. And it's going to be, it was 130 million when I started in Cult in 2011, and it's projected to be over 300 billion. What did I say? 130 million? Billion. These are with B's.
Yeah, B's.
Paid media was 130 billion 10, 11 years ago, and it's going to be over 300 billion. And I don't know how to stop it. I've tried being nice. I've tried being mean. It's just irrational. And in the sense that all of this incremental money is going into it, while all of the desirable KPIs around business health, business viability, customer engagement are tanking. And I see a correlation there, but unfortunately, I'm in the minority.
Oh. And what do you think about the outdoor advertising there? I mean, is that still, I guess it is still a thing. I see them when I'm driving, but.
Yeah, I mean, what they've done nicely is they've digitized it all, right? Mm-hmm. So you can now get into more rotations with it. It could be a bit more real time. Like, there's one in Calgary that I love where it shows you the wait time for the different hospital ERs. It's like, well, now that's adding value to my life. Or I have 3 teenage boys, so I spend a disproportionate amount of time in the ER. But you could do things with the weather. You could do things with politics. You could do things. We work with a university here in town, and you could change the messaging when you're trying to do enrollment stuff, in the spring versus congratulatory stuff in the summer versus, notifications about sporting events or extracurricular things in the fall. So I do think that the out-of-home product has gotten better, and I think that has a permanent level of relevance because people do need to drive back and forth and they'll see it. Versus banner ads, it's pretty hard to justify, why am I getting credit for something that was below the fold or that a bot actually served up versus a human? It's really the abuse and the unethical and illegal behavior in the digital space that I think until that gets cleaned up, it's kind of like you're just gambling with the money. Is this even going to go to the right place and do what people said it's going to do?
Yeah, and I didn't want to. I'm not going to go in this direction right now. I just wanted to. I always research the stuff that you talk about. You also posted something about the transparency of it, where as little as 12% can be tracked from end to end. I was just blown away by that stat, meaning that almost 90% of that kind of spend, you can't track it from end to end. It actually vanishes and people can't really account for it. It's like, that blew my mind. That number right there, just you're saying that basically the spend, you say, well, where'd you spend it? Well, I can track 12 cents.
Yeah, it's not Chris Kneeland saying this. It's PricewaterhouseCoopers auditing the biggest brands in the world for a 2-year period. Right? I mean, I think the data is indisputable. If you're still choosing to believe that you're the exception, either you're micromanaging it in a way that's abnormal or you're naive and you're being fooled.
Right on, right on. All right, I'm going to bring you in another direction right now. I hope you like this one as well. But you actually kind of mentioned something this is kind of a bridge to what we're going to do right now. You talked about, I have to go out and spend this money. So there's the CMOs maybe in the teams talking, but you posted something about the fact that there's the CEOs aren't seeming to be sold on it. So CEOs from major corporations aren't nearly as fond as online media as their marketing leaders are. And then you talked about a study of 200 CEOs, and 62% believe that too much of their digital marketing budget is wasted. 60% believe the effectiveness of social media has been exaggerated, and basically 3/4, 77%, do not regard digital advertising as a reliable source of new customers or sales. So you said basically it sounds like the CEOs and CMOs have to come together and talk about that. So let me ask you that. I mean, you're a CEO, and you are talking to CEOs. So what kind of information are you, first of all, this data obviously is very factual. Like I said, it's hard to dispute what the stats say. Out of 200 CEOs are saying this. What are you telling them these days as an advisor? I mean, do you completely stay away from this stuff, or do you go into the world of podcasting and live streams? And like,
I've never met anybody worth their salt in the podcasting space. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm going to say that again. I'm going to cut that out and use it for my promo.
Edit that. No, it's just to proceed with caution. I mean, it's not all bad or all good. I think the two things I tell CEOs, and I shared an example in my speech at the gathering, is like Airbnb. CEOs need to ask better questions, and they need to increase brand value. They need to increase profitability. They need to increase customer engagement. And most of the time, those objectives aren't met with a mass media or markdown centric strategy. I mean, the worst way to increase your profits is to start selling more stuff on sale. That's going in the opposite direction. But like Airbnb, they get their marketing spin just differently. Like their marketing spin helped the business drive $4 billion of sales. But their marketing also helped Airbnb achieve $100 billion in market capitalization when they went public in December. So what would you rather have? 4 billion or 100 billion, right? And so I think that too many times people think about marketing as just a way to win the weekend or to achieve some sort of short-term benefit. And I say, why can't you do that and create a cult brand and achieve a different level of irrational devotion amongst customers, prospects, staff, investors, whatever it might be, franchisees? So I just think that that CMOs are pretty good at delivering what the boss is asking for. And in some cases, the bosses need to ask better questions, try to deliver something more holistic. And then when it comes to what I blogged a while ago, that hamsters have a higher lifespan than CMOs, that CMOs are churning so quickly, less than 24 months within a company, because they're trying to get credit for being busy. Look at all the things that we've done. Look, we're posting on social media 3 times a day. We're on all the channels. We're doing Clubhouse things now. And it's like, those are all irrelevant means to an end. Like nobody had the job to say, I need to be an email marketer. You started email marketing hoping to grow your business. And somebody said, maybe we should try email. And then 5 years later, you have 5 employees who are doing nothing but email marketing, and nobody stopped to say, is this even a good idea? Certainly not those 5 employees. They're not going to say, maybe we should do less. Maybe you don't need me around here anymore. Right. So we just started managing channels, and you have a search team and a digital team and a traditional team. And it's like, I think we've lost the script here. The goal was never to create stuff that goes into all of the channels. The goal is to grow the business. And if you can do that with 1 or 2 channels or a sales force or word of mouth, then that's the preference. It's not to try to keep all the things alive and, fully functioning.
Yeah, like you said, once the cat's out of the bag and the bell's been rung, kind of thing. Like you said, they're not coming. We're not coming back. So the people that are, like you said, the people that are in that now. I mean, you mentioned Clubhouse. I'm actually going to get to that in a second as well with you. But this idea of once you become the expert, quote unquote, of that little tiny piece of the puzzle, yeah, you're not going to have that person coming back or that team coming back to the CEO and say, you know what. I think you can defund us. We're good. They're not going to do that because all of a sudden now, like you said, I am the email expert, or I am the, Twitter expert for our company, or whatever it is. So I'm fascinated by that. That's a show on itself right there. CMOs and CEOs. Maybe that's something you and I can put out to the universe right there. Hey, CMOs and CEOs, we're going to bring them together, talk about that. Let me bring up something that I found really, really cool. Again, just about you and a little bit about your philosophy. I'm always trying to learn more about what you're thinking, which is always kind of interesting. I know it kind of sounds weird, but I love this idea. You posted this. He said, what are the top 3 profound quotes I try to live my life by? The longer I live, the more I witness and experience, the more I'm convinced this is true. And this is the statement: the chief cause of failure and happiness is trading what you want most from what you want right now. So just elaborate on that for me, because I think that is profound.
So this is holistic. This could be having an affair on your wife. This could be drinking too much on the weekend. This could be indulging in, in my vice is sugar and food and overeating, right? So I want to be fit and healthy, but I really want Ben and Jerry's right now. And so I lose sight of my macro so that I can focus on the immediate. Are you familiar with the marshmallow experiment of the children from many decades ago? Yes. This is sort of along that same vein, as they tracked those students, the students who could temporarily withhold pleasure by not eating the one marshmallow, knowing that 2 would be delivered later, went on to have happier, healthier, more productive lives by whatever criteria the researchers thought was happy and productive. And I was always curious with my own children, have I taught them that idea of delayed gratification? Have I taught them this idea of sacrifice for the greater good? And I think it requires an emotional maturity. It focuses you to know on what you want most. Like, I mean, that's not to be dismissed in this. It's everybody kind of knows what they want right now, because we're carnal. We have appetites and passions that we want right now. Not everybody knows what they want most or in the future. And the more you can spend time, whatever, dream boarding it, meditating on it, secret, the idea of the secret, putting it out there into the universe, it really focuses you to say, well, if that's what I want most. I'm celebrating my 25th anniversary this year. I guess my greatest cause of I think you asked me that on your last podcast too, something about those. So if my wife is at the end of the day my number one, what are the temporary everyday decisions I'm making that put that in jeopardy? Now, again, it doesn't have to be we're going to get divorced, but just maybe makes her feel less than number one. Or if my company's goal is to achieve, this is a great thing for CEOs with their CMOs. Like, what's your ultimate goal? Do you want to exit in 5 years? Do you want to be bought out? Do you want to become $1 billion? Like, if that's your goal, don't ruin that with this, but we have to get our February sales numbers up. Because you're not in existence for February. People gave you that money. And I'd argue, we honored Amazon at the gathering this year. I really think Amazon had two superpowers. And one of them was conditioning Wall Street that you're not going to get a short-term gain. This is not about winning the quarter. And they went, 8 or 9 years without showing a profit, but they still had access to cheap capital because investors said, okay, I'm buying into the long game of what Jeff Bezos is all about. And very few CEOs manipulate or manage their shareholders as well as Jeff Bezos has. And it was permission to invest in the business and to take those losses in the short term that has now made them $1 trillion success story. I wish more people had that sort of foresight. Yeah. So really, like I said, a philosophy of life, and of course, it crosses over into your business. It's just like you said. I mean, if you can think of the long game versus the short game, I know people like Gary Vee and other influencers use that term a lot, but I know that's that's actually building a cult brand, is it not? The long-term vision as opposed to this instantaneous. Well, I mean, I do like to honor cult brands that have been around for at least 100 years, because I mean, that's pretty exceptional. I always try to combat the narrative that you have to choose short-term success or cult brand status. I mean, I do think that I was just re-listening to the Vegas Golden Knights presentation from 2 years ago, and they achieved cult brand status in less than 3 years. Right. Doritos was at the gathering. They were sort of, I don't want to say tanking, but they had sort of stagnated, and a new CMO comes in, and within 3 years they're back to category dominance. So I don't subscribe to the fact that if you want to build a cult brand, give yourself, it's like planting a tree, and 20 years from now you're going to enjoy the fruit. I think you can be a bit more quick on that. Here locally, I always like to use Sport Check. Kind of a local hero. Sport Check is here in Calgary, and when their new CMO came in, he turned it around within 9 months. Within 9 months, they started to produce more same-store sales than any retailer in North America, month-over-month increases. And so, I think that you can have your cake and eat it too, in terms of speed and cult-like significance.
Yeah, well said, well said. I'm watching the clock. I got to keep moving. You mentioned Clubhouse. I know you're on there. I saw a profile on you. What do you think? What is this? What is this phenomenon all about?
Well, it's
apparently billions of dollars of valuation already. I'm like,
it looked a lot less phenomenal last month. I don't know if you've seen some of the usage and engagement metrics. I'm not prepared to declare it a winner or a loser, because I had my own sort of love-hate relationship with Peloton, where it kind of came out swinging. I think it took a pretty big dip, and people started to think, is this overrated? And then it rebounded quite well. But the first phase of Clubhouse was pretty phenomenal. It came onto the scene faster, bigger than most social media platforms. It's in a lull phase right now, where I think more substance has to be added, more users need to come in, and they got to make some decisions about how quickly they can grow. So yeah, the jury is still out on whether or not it's going to. Candidly, I've loved the simplicity of it, but it's not. I'm not ready to change my everyday behavior to be an active participant on the platform.
Okay, you know what? I just want to throw it out to you. I think you should be on there more because of your voice and so on. So whenever you're ready to do that, I'll co-moderate. I'll help you with that, because I'd love to have you. I think you should be on those, because I'm listening to people quite a lot on there. And there's some. It's just like every platform. You can find the good, bad, and ugly. It's all there. But there is some good stuff, and I think you'd be a strong. You just be a strong voice in that world that talk about branding, marketing, and things like that. Just throwing it out there for you. Simple as that. Hey, you have a podcast, speaking of your voice, the Cult Brand Secret Podcast. Cult Brand Secrets. Tell everybody a little bit about that. I'll put it up along the bottom for everyone to see there. It's basically little snippets of the great things that happen at the gathering, right?
Yeah, and I love this word anthology. So it's kind of like, like I mentioned, we've had over 500 speakers now over the past 8 years. And so our chance to make sure that the greatest hits don't get lost. And so every week we release a new sort of snippet, 30 minutes or so from lessons learned. And I give it a little preamble at the beginning of what I think some of the big takeaways are. And that's actually what I was working on today, which is why Doritos and the Vegas Golden Knights were on my mind, is their episodes. And then Lush just got released, I think, this morning. Lush Cosmetics, to me, this would be my LinkedIn post tomorrow. But if you were to take the delta between amazing brands and brands that everybody always talks about. So like Nike's an amazing brand, but everybody always talks about it. Apple, Starbucks. And then there's a lot of brands that people talk about that I don't think are particularly amazing. But Lush is among the highest delta of truly doing remarkable things that I don't hear enough about in the conversation. Yeah. And so I hope we can shine a spotlight on them and give them some of the credit that's due.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I've tuned into a couple just to kind of see. And the premium version of this, so you're saying that you can go into Apple, Spotify, and so on, you'll get a snippet of it. But if you go to the website here, the premium content, you can sign up and get
it's a subscription if you want to get the long form. So every episode gives you a 10 or 15 minute teaser. Yeah. But we're trying to be, I think, paid digital and social content is always very tricky. The New York Times pulled it off, but USA Today can't, or whatever. So we want to sort of honor the investment that people who pay to participate in the gathering, we believe, should have some preferential access to some of this content. And so we kind of keep the archive sacred and secure for a year. And then once it's gets replaced with the new stuff, then we sort of democratize it and set the old stuff out there.
I love it. I love it. And I do like the preamble before, because you have time to kind of be reflective,
Yeah.
to go back and let some time and things settle, and now you're looking at it through a different lens at the time as opposed in the moment. So I think that's going to be a really interesting aspect of it, as actually the insights that you have prior to introducing that content. So anyway, I wanted to make sure everyone knew about the new podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Now, I know you're stuck for time. We got to keep going. Listen, we got to have some fun before you go. You know, we do fun. So last time you were here, we do this or that. We were doing this or that with you. But, because you were here last time, I had to change it up for you. I had to change it up.
Some new questions?
Way, no way. Way, no way.
All
That's
right.
what we're doing right now. We're going to do Way No Way. And Way No Way, Chris Neal, again, going to give me an insight of the CEO and of Cult and brands, what's going on. So I'm just going to say a sentence. If you love it, it's way. And if you don't, of course, it's no way. Right? So it's Way No Way. Simple as that. Okay, you ready to go?
Ready.
Just a little bit of fun. A little bit of fun. Here we go. Bowling is a real sport.
No way. No way. Let's just stop on that one. I mean, bowling is a great game. Bowling is a fun hobby. It is in no definition a sport, and I'll go to blows with anyone who says otherwise.
I knew that would start that one. That's great. I appreciate that. Kids should get paid for doing their chores.
Oh, boy. Listen, philosophically, I say no way, but practically, as a parent and as a guy that just bribed his son with a car, I would say parenting is sometimes easier with some bribery.
There you go. The Rolling Stones are too old to tour.
Again, you're a Rolling Stones. Who cares? Is there a who cares category? The Stones have done nothing for me lately, so I could care less what they're doing. Oh, now you want to come to blows, don't you?
Oh no, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that another time. Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Oh boy, sure, way. It's a great movie. It's one of my all-time favorites. So if you needed more excuses to watch it, add it to the Christmas list.
There you go. Okay, be careful here. Be careful. Utah is a better state than Texas.
No way. I mean, Texas is an icon. Texas is a cult brand, candidly. Utah's a better place for me to live, but Texas is a remarkable state in terms of the way that they've built a brand around that state.
I think you're absolutely right about that. I think you're absolutely, it is a brand. It is actually, no, I agree with that. Now, of course, you spent some time in Canada. I think you spent in 9 different states as well. So Canada, US, you've lived all around the world, and now right back here, you traveled around the world. That's for sure. Now that you're heading back from Canada, you're going to have to tell your friends the answer to this. Pineapple is a great pizza topping.
Yeah. Do you think way for sure? Do you think that's a Canadian thing though? That's like a Hawaiian thing.
Well, no, I'm saying I find when I ask Americans that, they're like, no way.
Oh, I've had just as much pineapple on my pizza in America as I have in Canada.
Okay.
And I think it's maybe a bit unusual, but it deserves to be on there.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. Who you know is more important than what you know.
That's probably a way, and that's probably a lesson I'm continuing to learn. I would have prioritized knowledge over relationships for most of my life, and now I probably have some regrets for doing that.
Wow, that's insightful. I know what you mean by that. So you mean, listen, that's really good. I agree with that. I agree with the relationship is a very important thing. Clowns are scary.
Yeah, way. Yeah, I could be okay with never seeing a clown again.
In the long run, Amazon will beat Netflix.
What do you mean in the long run? They're already beating Netflix. You mean the subscription service, Amazon Prime?
I just mean, do you think Netflix will actually be put in the ground like a Blockbuster one day?
Oh, you think Amazon might put Netflix out of business?
And or own them?
Boy, that's provocative. I'll go with no way. I think Amazon has its lane, and I don't know. Prime is, Amazon Prime is my favorite loyalty program. I think it's remarkable what they've been able to pull off. And if they're essentially giving away the content for free because they can monetize other aspects of their business, Netflix has a hill to climb. I just think that movie making and Hollywood is a discipline that you need to respect. And I don't know that Amazon. So maybe you kind of had me. You said maybe Amazon buys Netflix one day. That could happen. Okay. I don't think Amazon Prime content team is going to produce better stuff than Disney or Netflix can produce on their own.
Yeah, and the purchase of MGM. What do you think of that? Just curious.
Yeah, I think it's smart.
Yeah, it plays down that path. I agree with you. Hope is more important than freedom.
Yeah, you told me this last time. I don't love that juxtaposition, but yes, I said way.
So hope is more important than freedom.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to double check. I was just checking back from the last one so I can put them both together to see what.
Did I say the opposite last time?
I'm going to go back.
So. I've become a bigger and bigger believer in the power of hope. And I think if you are in a situation where you lack freedom, you can still have hope. I think it's hard in a situation where if you lack hope, your freedom you maybe care less about. I mean, I think to be hopeless is probably I'd rather be unfree than hopeless.
I love that. Okay, going to quote that. I'll cut that one out and send it to you for your spouse as well. Finish this sentence for me. Here's the last one. Finish this sentence for me. If there is one thing that I know for sure in this life, it's.
Boy, if there's one thing I know for sure in life, it would be that we can always do better. The striving for better, not perfection, but for progress should be what gets us out of bed every morning. It's like, you know what, I can make today even better.
Fantastic. And there's the hope. There's the hope right there.
There you go.
Chris Kneeland, my fine friend. Hey, by the way, I'm going to throw this out right now publicly while we get it in public and stuff like that. I had that book, The Fix, and I know that you guys are really pushing that. Not pushing, but it seems to be it's on your LinkedIn profile and so on, which is fantastic. I had a copy of that book. I can't freaking find it. I got to drop by and see you, and I want one. I want one signed. Can I get one signed from you?
Deal. I owe you a signed copy of Fix before I pull out.
I do before you go, and I drive by your office almost every day when I drop my spouse off downtown Calgary. So I'll stop by and drop in sometime and knock on the door. I'd love to have that before you go. Listen, always super good to see you. Always a pleasure to hear all of your insights, all the things you're doing. I'm so excited for when you get settled down there. Don't change your number right away. I'd love to stay connected, and I'd love to see several months down the road to see what maybe we can do.
For sure. Let's come back together in Q4
and see what this is all about for you. Super appreciate that. I can't tell you again, people, to please go check out first of all cultideas.com, but The Gathering, they already have promos up or talking about 2022, so that's gonna be fun because it's gonna be live again. It's gonna be live again. So it'll be all fantastic. So again, thank you, Chris. I super appreciate it. I know you got a family waiting for you right now.
Yeah, I got to run. Very kind of you to have me back on, Peter, and best of luck to you.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody else, be kind out there, everyone. Be kind. Cheers, everyone.